All right, it's all you, Mr. Hansen.
Yeah, my name is Paul John Hansen. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm Kent Hoven's co-defendant. I'm currently being held in a federal jail for the trial that's going on between Kent and I. And I've been asked to put together a presentation, basically orally, of because a lot of people have had questions of territorial jurisdiction, because Kent Hoven's case is and mine is very much established on if the feds have territorial jurisdiction to prosecute us criminally, and if they don't, we're basically in the wrong court and they're applying the wrong law to us. So this this title is called Intro to the Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States Federal Government, Class 101. So it's an introduction class. We'll probably have a 201 and a 301 or 401 class. Okay, in the 1500s, people started appearing in the land we call America. That's basically land between Mexico and Canada. In the 1600s, the colonists were established, funded, and governed in part by the King or Queen of England. 1700s, more than 3 million people lived in the colonies. 1750 approximately and forward, the British started quartering, stationing troops, and they were becoming quite an irritant to the colonists. In 1760 approximately, they started taxing imports such as paper and tobacco and just a handful of other items that were commonly used by the colonies. Though the tax was small, the colonists knew it was a camel nose under the tent, under the proverbial tent, and soon the tent will be collapsed if due to the power of taxation. Power of taxation is the power to govern. The power to govern is the power to take away, the power to destroy. God-ordained governance does not include such taxation, the colonists believed. And approximately, basically on 1776, July 4th, everybody knows that date, after years of trying to work with the British Crown, the Great Separation was declared, called the Declaration of Independence from the British Empire. Yet established the document to clearly say that they maintain a dependence on God. Basically, war started. All British Crown governments ceased on that day in relationship to territorial jurisdiction, leaving each man governed by God. You're never going to get away from that. And you're governed by God's written word and applied by the local community. In 1777, the colonies put together what they called the Articles of Confederation. It was created to unite the colonies by consent. They weren't forced to do it, but it was a union. It was an agreement.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
It was an agreement to defend as one for all and all for one. So each colony, which is in a sense a state, a jurisdiction, agreed to if any of the other colonies were attacked, that they would work together to defend each other and pool together in times of need of attack. 12 years later, in 1789, a tool was created to enhance the 1777 Confederacy document, body of law, and it constituted three parts. Every constitution basically has land, law, and people. Number one is the land owned for the Confederacy purpose. Number two is the written law that operates on that land, that same land. Number three, and the people to elect to live on that given land. Okay, notice it's an election. You're not being forced to. Noting that no one lives on that land, the land of the Confederacy, which we call federal land today, by right. always a privilege to live there. No one enters onto it or lives on it. This is called federal land by right. Even the Confederacy itself does not use this land by right. All land used of this Confederacy is by grant, permission from the people occupying the land. Now they occupy it by force if need be. When the colonists came to the country and started developing new lands, sometimes they had to drive away Indians and so forth. They actually declared war on them when things couldn't be worked out to live together, and drove them off in various ways, thus occupying land. If you occupy the land, you tend to make the rules of the land. That's what happened. The vast majority of the people that started coming to America did so by declaration to promote the kingdom of God. That's something that the revisionist historians don't want anybody to know. Our country is founded on the principles of the kingdom of God coming here. The Lord wants us to conduct our lives just the way heaven would have us do. As written in now the people agreed at that time that the 1611 King James Bible was the scriptures that was sufficient to follow, an accurate English representation of the written law of old. Okay, the written law of this land, the land of the Confederacy of the Union.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
The written law of this land is created by the Congress of the United States. Laws are presented by individual congressmen as a bill. If the bill is passed, it is then U.S. law, and it's basically recorded in statutes at large. And that's the record of the law. It's also sometimes referred to as positive law. This law is then placed into a United States code by topic, basically, so you can find it. Never trust the United States Code. It has many mistakes in it. Many portions of the original bill language are removed, and some words are added, always to give advantage to the United States government or corporations of the United States, especially the banking and the Federal Reserve System, or insurance companies, or oil corporations, just to name a few. Now let's get back to territorial jurisdiction. Example of land that's been purchased by the 1789 United States Constitution is the Louisiana Purchase from Spain. This land was purchased by the United States 100% by the United States of America. So at that time, if you went to the titled owner of the land, if it was written somewhere, it would be titled the United States of America, exactly as the styling is found in the Articles of Confederation. And they still do that today. If you find truly owned government land, it's going to be styled exactly as it is in the 1777 Confederacy documents. If it doesn't have the word "the" in front of it, it's not government land. Okay, this land is 100% governed by United States written law, which is congressional law, which is legislative law. Foremost article that you can refer to in the United States Constitution that pinpoints where territorial jurisdiction begins and ends is Article 1 of the United States Constitution, Section 8, Paragraph 17. Talks about an area called the District of Columbia, and in short, it talks about places purchased. So written law applies on the District of Columbia, which is the home base of the Confederacy in the United States governance, and also is included in that is places purchased. All these places are purchased are to be for a military purpose, because the United States Constitution is a military document. So if you had a chessboard before you, and that chessboard represented what we might call Nebraska, for example, that's where I'm from. during the Louisiana Purchase, all of that chessboard would represent a federal zone. Now, the Constitution of the United States says that they can only hold land for 5 years, or if they don't utilize that land for a military purpose, they've got to sell it back to the public, or allow the public to take possession of it, which they did. And since that time, all but 1.4% of Nebraska has been converted from a federal zone to private property. So 1.4% is actually called a federal zone. The rest is called non-federal zone. We often refer to it as public land and private land.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I'll talk just a little bit more and then call back in. For example, Connecticut is 0.4%, a very small amount of federal land nowadays. Nebraska is 1.4%, Nevada is 84%, California is 34%. So each district, we often refer to as a state, but it's actually a district, has a different amount. And my website is pauljjhansen.com, freeinhabitant.info, and you can get more information on that. I'll go ahead and call in here, get the time clocked started again.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll wait for you to call back.
Zero 4249. To hear the cost of this call, press 8 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. Decline. This call is subject to monitoring and recording. Do not use three-way or call waiting features during this call. Thank you for using Global Tel Link.
All right, it's all you, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm just down to my last page, so it won't be a whole lot more, and you can start asking questions, okay?
Okay, no, very good.
Say when.
Okay, go ahead. It's all you, sir.
Okay, I just got done giving you various percentages of the land in each district of land, and if you ever get them on my website, there's a map there that shows the amount of federal land that is owned before Lincoln's War, the war between the states. And you'll see that once Lincoln won his war, that the amount of land that is retained by the federal government after that point when they started developing that land, moving west, is tremendously more federal land is held back by the government. For example, Connecticut is 0.4%. Okay, that's less than 1%. Now, when you get to California, land in California is generally fairly expensive. The federal government owns 34% of California. Overall, I've heard that the United States owns about 24-25% of America. They do not need any money from anybody to operate. They've got plenty of revenue from the properties that they own. Most of that, probably 80% of that land, they're not supposed to own because it's not being utilized for a military purpose. And well, enough on that. So anyway, I'm gonna start talking about if you would go to your county assessor and you wanted to do a search on government land in that county, all you have to do is type in under the owner the United States of America, and it'll pop up and tell you how much land is owned by the United States government, basically the Confederacy. And it'll be it'll usually pop up like federal courthouses, IRS buildings, and not a whole lot more in most areas. Many of the Air Force bases and other bases for military purposes are not even owned by the government in America. They're actually leased from extremely wealthy people, 99-year leases and so forth. So, for example, in Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, the federal courthouse and the IRS building, which are very close together, you can go to the county assessor and type it in, and it'll tell you that the United States of America is that owner, and it's written exactly the way it is written in the Articles of Confederation. It's lower and uppercase letters, so it's depicting the exact style name there. Now, when you go to an area, and people usually tell you, well, you're in the state of Nebraska, or you're in the state of Florida. Now, state of Florida is a sentence. It's not a thing. The word state in the sentence of state of Florida is always defined in the statute of every 50 states as a possession or territory of the United States. Now, the word of is just a word to connect the word state and Nebraska together, like the Paul of Nebraska. It's connecting. Now, the word Nebraska or Florida is a district. So, if you made the proper sentence disclose everything about it, it would actually say a possession or territory of the United States of the district called Nebraska. So, if you're actually asked if you're in a U.S. court and you're asked if you live in the state of Nebraska and you say yes, you actually just told them that you live on federal land. Or if you're asked did the violation take place in the state of Nebraska, you just told the court that it took place on federal land. Now, they want you to do that. The word county also means the same as state. Very, very tricky. You don't want to. You got to be very careful about communicating where you reside or where a specific activity took place. And basically, you want to keep that burden upon them because it almost never takes place where their written law is operating. The next thing is state legislature is a subdivision.
This call is from the Santa Rosa County Sheriff's Office.
The word legislature means lawmaker. So when you say the word state legislature, you're actually talking about a possession or territory of the United States lawmaking authority in a given district. So the state of Nebraska legislature makes laws for that district. Now, they're still subject to the United States written law by Congress, but they're allowed to micromanage some of their governance in the district. Never violating the Constitution, of course. But it still is only for land that is of the United States in America. If you're in Nebraska, in the borders of what we call Nebraska, only 1.4% of that is the legislative law actually going to apply to. Now, both laws apply to the same land and the same people. What I'm talking about here is the state of Nebraska, for example, and United States Congress congressional law. They both apply to the same land and the same people. U.S. people are governed U.S. citizens are governed in part, even when not on U.S. land. When they're not on state land. One of the best things you can do in court is if the state or feds do not have a witness, and it can't be an attorney, to meet your territorial jurisdiction challenge, the court lacks subject matter jurisdiction, which is fact evidence of acting law. The case must be dismissed if pre-verdict or pre-judgment, or if it's must be vacated if post-verdict or post-judgment. So it's very important to understand territorial jurisdiction, and you never try to attempt to prove territorial jurisdiction does not exist. You always put the burden of proof on them to prove that it does exist. You will never prevail if you try to prove it doesn't exist. And they're very good at making sure that you're not going to do well on that. So you put an IRS witness IRS agent in the witness stand, and you ask him, for example, in Ken Hovitt's case, Mr. IRS agent, you claim that Kent Hovind was required to withhold money from the ministry's workers at this location. Is that correct? You'll go, yes. Do you have any evidence that that land is a possession or territory of the United States pursuant to Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17 of the United States Constitution? He cannot prove it. The written law of Congress doesn't apply there. The case should be vacated immediately at that moment. So it's extremely powerful. Any questions then?
No, I think I do, but I want to make sure we get a clean cut on the recording before I go into questions and answers. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up this particular portion of it, Mr. Hansen?
No, I think just the questions. It's kind of an introductory thing, so when people start asking questions about this, then we'll get into more expanded, answers and application of the law principle.
No, very, very good. I want to say before I close this particular audio down, send those to me at ruddavis@yahoo.com, and I'll make sure that we do get those to you, Mr. Hansen. It's very interesting stuff that you got to say, and I do have some questions myself, but I want to put that on a different audio. So thank you, Mr. Hansen.